I'd like to introduce Garri from the United States, who takes LDN for MS. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
So, could you tell us when you first started to experience MS symptoms?
Oh, that is difficult because I think I have probably truly had it for 20 years. I'm almost 60, and I was diagnosed last May, right before I turned 59. So I've had almost a year, an actual official diagnosis. But actually, I had some shoulder problems back in 2008, and it had a shoulder X-ray, and they saw lesions on my neck, cervical spine, and said that it looked like a demyelinating disease. What's a demyelinating disease? Well, it could be MS. Freaked me out. They decided they were just going to look at it because they didn't know what it was, and I was having zero symptoms. When I look back on it, I'd actually been diagnosed with Meniere's syndrome, which is an inner ear disturbance. In actuality, it was MS symptoms. So actually being diagnosed a little less than a year, but I had all of the symptoms. I've been going to a chiropractor because I'm an athlete and a jock, and I was a waitress a long time ago. And if you know anything about waitressing, it's a very physical job, and if you don't go to a chiropractor, you don't do it very long. And it always had my neck adjusted, and I had kept complaining for the last year about feeling like the nerves in my back along my shoulder and right down my spine, I felt like I was plugged in all the time, that my nerves were always humming. I've been itching terribly and creepy crawly feeling that everybody talks about with MS. I realized that's what I was experiencing. And I'd actually been feeling these things for years. Toe numbness, numbness on my fingers, all that kind of stuff. But I just put that off to, I played tennis on a hard court, and I just been beating my body up, and that was just part of it. So the eye twitching and a case of trigeminal neuralgia is what in last May actually took me to the doctor. Had an MRI. They found lesions in my brain. They saw those lesions in my neck again that I had had 4 years previously and said, you have MS. And you need to go get a lumbar puncture, and you need to get on these drugs. And then walked out of the room. And I'm freaking out again, thinking I'd heard this 4 years ago. Why weren't we doing something about it 4 years ago? So basically, when I looked into the crab drugs, the Copaxone, I don't even know how to pronounce them. I never had to take them, thank God. When I looked into them, they looked awful, and the side effects, and everybody was talking about them on the internet. And which do you take? Do you go in for infusions? Do you take steroids? And I've always been a health nut all my life, and I didn't want to do that. So in my research, I heard about LDN on the internet, and people kept talking about the fact that it really helped their MS symptoms, plus it was helping with pain. Well, in August, after I had been diagnosed in May, I had the worst trigeminal neuralgia attack of my life, and it was unrelenting for 2 weeks. It was like a toothache that had gone horribly wrong and affected the whole side of my head, and it wouldn't stop. And there was nothing that cut the pain, nothing. And I called my neurologist, hysterical, on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and I said, can I up the meds? They gave me a seizure med. Can I up this med and take more, because nothing is cutting it. I don't know what to do. And the nurse who answered the phone said, well, nobody's here. It's Friday afternoon. Everybody's gone. I said, you're open till 5 o'clock. Who is the doctor? And she said, I'm sorry, they're all gone. You'll have to go to ER. We'll call you back Monday. I said, you're joking. I said, I'm in trouble right now. I can't even drive myself to the ER. I am home alone. You really have no opinion? And she said, no, you have to call back, and hung up on me. So, yeah, I know. So, needless to say, when she called back on Monday, I told her exactly what I thought of her caring attitude and said that I was going to get my records and go to somebody else. It was hard to get into that neuro all the time anyway. And I was talking to his PA, never him, his PA, always his PA. So this isn't what I wanted at all. I'd started with the eye twitching, and it was starting to interfere with reading. And more and more I started to hear about LDN, and I did call the neurologist back and say, listen, I have all this information about LDN, told them all about it, gave them information. They called me back in 2 hours and said, no, naltrexone cannot be used for MS. It's used for drug addicts. Did you know that? And I said, yes, I know that. It's called low-dose naltrexone for a reason. And she cut me off and she said, no, you need to use, and then she started up, the cancer drugs again. And I said, absolutely not. So in the meantime, my chiropractor, who is holistic, put me onto a holistic doctor near where I worked. And she said she knew someone else who had been on LDN for MS with this doctor. Got into this doctor, and the first thing she said when she looked at me, she goes, why are you here? And I told her I was interested in going on LDN for MS, and she goes, well, let's just try this. And we discussed it together. She's wonderful. She's done all kinds of testing. If you know anything about MS, it is affected by all kinds of things, diet, metal poisoning, food sensitivities, candida, all of which I have, all of which I didn't know. It's like one big mystery that I'm solving. But with the LDN, from the first week I started taking it, the pain started to diminish, and within a month it was gone. And the eye twitching was gone. The constant plugged-in feeling with my back was gone. The severe itching to where I would scratch where I bleed is gone. And did you know that itching is a precursor to pain? So all those nerves that were itching were about to go into full-fledged pain. So I feel like I dodged a bullet with LDN, that the pain could have been absolutely 100,000 times worse if I had not started on it when I did.
Well,
so that's the beginning story.
What else would you like to add?
The thing people have to realize with LDN, and I see this constantly when I'm reading, is that there are a lot of things that trigger disease. And you and I have discussed other people's stories that you read. I am very fortunate because I am still a very involved athlete. I play tournament tennis at my age 4, 5, sometimes 6 days a week. And yeah, I have to be careful. I do get fatigued. I don't really know if that's because I'm 60 and I'm playing singles matches that are 2.5 hours long and I'm tired and the girl I played was 30 years old, or if it's my MS. I've always been a very good athlete, but all my life I've always unconsciously, interestingly enough, done things to help myself to ward off a lot of the symptoms of the MS that I've had. One thing that's very good for inflammation and fighting inflammation is chiropractic adjustment to the neck, and I don't know if you've heard people talking about that. So with trigeminal neuralgia, it is an inflammation of the trigeminal nerve in your neck. So if you have inflammation on top of that, plus that nerve is inflamed, adjusting so the inflammation lessens is a good idea. And this is something that I had been doing instinctively because I wanted to remain an athlete at my age, and because even though insurance wasn't going to cover it, I knew it was a good way to keep myself healthy. I've always eaten well. I don't drink pop. I don't drink excessively. I've always eaten well. I eat fairly raw. I do some processed food and stuff, but since the MS diagnosis and the blood work I've had, I found that I've had candida, so I'm trying to do more of a yeast-free diet. I've addressed that and actually taken meds for that. And LDN does not work well if you do not address as many problems as you have having MS. It's a constant fight of inflammation. MS often is a reaction to years of putting your body through some kind of stress, whether it be leaky gut, and your body is constantly in an inflamed state dealing with food being where it's not supposed to be, or dealing with food allergies and you continue to eat the food and continue to inflame your body, at some point the immune system is so overwhelmed that that's when you end up with other opportunistic disease, and MS is sort of a natural progression to that point because your immune system is so weakened. Mm-hmm. And it does attack itself because it's not working properly. So to me, LDN works on disease the way common sense tells you should be looking at disease, which is strengthening the very system that keeps you well all your life anyway, rather than the way that modern medicine looks at treating MS, which is, it's an overactive immune system. Let's kill it so it can't be overactive, but let's kill everything else in your body along with it. Mm-hmm. What a crazy way to look at things. Mm. And it's kind of sad. It's interesting that a drug is actually our miracle, but how smart that somebody figured out that at a low dose, it enhances a natural response in your body to help yourself. It's fascinating to me how they even, I mean, I know the story of how it all happened, but it is like a miracle when you think about it.
Certainly is. So I would imagine that you tell everybody about LDN, that you would never stop taking it.
I absolutely try to tell everyone I can, but there is a very closed mind for people that are on a drug that they have side effects with, and they don't want to rock the boat, so to speak. And even though they have some debilitation, maybe they're on Copaxone, and they like it, even though they don't like their body's reaction to it, they don't want to hear about LDN. Mm-hmm. So I have to kind of go around the side and just stay friends with them and let them know that I'm happy and healthy. And at some point, if they're not feeling well, maybe they will come to me and say, would you suppose LDN would work for me? Because I'm in kind of a weird position. I didn't have the extreme illness that a lot of you have had. I didn't end up in a wheelchair. I didn't have the leg weakness, obviously, if I'm a jock. My problems were strictly pain, lots of it, and really severe. And that's what brought me to a neurologist, because I thought it was a dental issue, which I'm sure you've heard time and time again, too, with trigeminal neuralgia. Yeah. But, I was convinced there was a nerve regenerating in my face from oral surgery I'd had 10 years ago. And you couldn't have told me otherwise. And to tell me that it was MS just blew my mind. But when you look at all the other symptoms that go with it, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But I tell people online constantly. I'm in probably 5 or 6 different kinds of forums that are MS related, LDN, whatever. And I try to jump in and tell my story. But a lot of times when people question me and find out that, I don't have the level of debilitation they do, I've actually gotten called out on that. And like, well, who are you to talk about, MS? You don't have the same experience. You didn't suffer for 20 years like I did. Well, no, I didn't. Aren't I lucky that I found LDN in the beginning when it really, because there's people that have had exacerbation and nothing else happens to them for years and years and years. And they're not on any medication. They're not even on LDN, and nothing happens to them. So obviously there are different stages of MS. There's different severity of MS. It's different the way people react to it because of their own personal story or stresses or body chemistry or makeup. But I found that if I friend a lot of these people privately, the ones that are really like on the fence about LDN, and say, listen, I have severe pain, and just go from there. Yeah. What it fixed for me, they're more interested in listening rather than, I'm leading the full life and, I'm happily on the tennis court. I still have to be careful. I still have to take all my supplements. I still have a restricted diet. I have to be very careful about what I eat, because if I slip up, I actually do have some pain. I have to be careful. So, yeah, the LDN works, but you have to be smart about the rest of your life, too.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us, Garri.
It was nice talking to you, Linda. It's always really nice talking to you. I hope we stay friends.
Thank you.
And good luck.